Yeah, I thought they were interesting because they were so different calls, and you could tell they were following different algorithms. I thought the first one, in some ways, was an example of what NHS Direct is so good at. That he dealt with everything from, as you say, preventative stuff to, and he was reassuring. He sounded quite confident, and he moved from all around the place, the flu jab, and then to when she said she was feeling sick at the end. And part of me thought, well, actually, you could close this call down earlier because it went on and on. But then in the going on and on, she did then talk about her sickness, and maybe she wouldn't have done that if he had closed the call down. I thought he could have perhaps closed the call down. And at the end, I think you're absolutely right. There's sometimes that the last sort of take-home message is sometimes lost a bit. And I thought he said, maybe you need to speak to your out-of-hours doctor tomorrow, or your pharmacist. And I thought, well, actually, you don't really. So why did you say that?
Yeah, if it's
got
worse.
It's a shame, actually. And similarly, I noticed in agree with other points. I think that take-home message is quite important.
Yeah.
Tim?
I thought they were both good calls. The point I wanted to make, on the second call, it's a bit strange that the sister of a 24-year-old brings up on the 24-year-old's behalf, I thought. And far from it for me to extend the length of the call, we've just finished talking to the patient. We didn't go back to the original caller and close it out, I don't think. Now, so maybe, and I don't know how we deal with that, would you do that with a teenager, with their mother ringing up and say, dealt with the teenager, then can I just speak to your mother again? I felt that the original caller just made the call and handed the phone over, and it was all dealt with. And we didn't close out the original caller. And I felt quite concerned about that.
Yeah, I take your point. Sometimes that's a judgment call with the member of staff, depending on how sick the patient themselves is. And our policy is to actually speak to the patient even
Absolutely.
when they are really sick. So I do take your point. We should go back to the patient and give a summary of what we've just concluded with their representative on the phone.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's a difficult one.
Yeah.
So difficult.
It almost feels like that would lengthen the call.
It will lengthen the call. It will lengthen the call, and also there is the implication of the patient is so sick they've asked their relative to speak on their behalf because they're.
That's right, because you're thinking there must be something behind this. Why is the sister ringing up for a 24-year-old? I know.
Okay. So judgment always required, I guess.
Absolutely.
Louisa?
So it's just a small point that I always wonder about. Is that people know who they're talking to? I don't know the answer to this. Does it matter that they're talking to a health advisor and they might not know what a health advisor is? Just in terms of, I'd like to know who I'm talking to, particularly if I'm talking about my health. Does that matter? Would it just be too awful to say I'm a health advisor and it adds time to the call and may sort of undermine, somewhat undermine that advice? I don't know.
In previous surveys, our patients have indicated that, as long as the person on the end of the phone is knowledgeable and imparts, safe and appropriate advice, they are happy with that advice. Our literature in the past has also described the different types of staff that we employ. It's something we could cover in a future piece of research or patient satisfaction survey.
I thought the members of staff did introduce themselves by their job title.
I think it's the understanding of what a health advisor is.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is they did say they're one of a health advisors. Yeah, right.
I just think you might not know what one is. I don't know if that matters. Yeah. It's just something I wanted to know.
Our patients in the past have indicated they don't believe it does matter.
Okay. Thank you, Trish, for sharing those calls with us. I think it's always useful. It's a way of getting us to really remember what it feels like to be a user. And obviously this pair of calls is particularly relevant given the stresses that the system was under, and they represent, I suppose, a huge chunk of what you were dealing with. So thank you very much for that. I'm sure, Renette.
Before we move on, I don't know if you were just summing up and
I
move on
was,
to the next section. It was I just wanted, not in relation to these calls, but in calls generally.
Yes.
And this is, I think, in relation to some learning about an incident for national review that I participated in, where, and Trish and I have talked about this, where it's from listening to the call alone, it seemed as if it was a system error that had caused this incident, where actually the patient had given the right answer, the wrong answer had been clicked in the system. That without the backup of the system, what was clicked on the system, didn't mean anything to me. So I have suggested to Trish that what we also have is a summary of the call record of what was on the system when we're listening to particular calls.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So that we can see therefore what the algorithms they used were and what the outcomes were. Not the whole thing, obviously, just the summary of I clicked yes to this question, no to that question, etc., etc.
Because you can print off the actual patient record, it would be the anonymising of that and then dispersing that through the team to do that.
Yeah, so we don't need to
Yes,
anonymise
so
it, and it doesn't go out with the board papers, it goes out with the CD.
Yeah.
So I don't think we need to worry about that.
Yeah.
But
it does give you a different view
perspective,
of the call, as in how the health advisors responded.
Actually, I say that. Of course, the CD's encrypted and the bit of paper wouldn't be.
they are
Okay, so can we have a think about that?
Just needs to be not patient
Yeah.
identifiable.
Yeah.
That would be fine.
Yeah.
Right, we can find a way of doing that. Good. And we'll have some more calls next time around.
Yes.
Yeah. Good. Okay, thank you. Yeah. Fine. I don't know about other people. I've sat in on
One other thing, sorry, was that over Christmas I trained to be a cold and flu symptoms checker, and I spoke to about 35 patients over Christmas, so that it was half day's training and all of those sorts of things. And I just wanted to say that what we were going to do is to try and get more back office staff like myself to participate in the delivery of direct patient care for simplistic. You can train somebody in half a day on how to use a single system for a single thing.
Yep.
It takes a lot longer for all of the eventualities, but I really enjoyed it. The staff quite liked seeing me there and supporting me, I think, and it's something we want to roll out to other members of staff.
So are you saying that any of us could do it if we wanted to?
If you'd like to, yeah.
Well, if you've got a CRB check.
Yeah.
I've got one of them. I've got hundreds of
Roger,
those.
would you help us get the CRB
Of course
checks?
I can.
Okay, good.
Can you use
Um,
one? I've got one.
Very good. You're very quick on that one, Roger. That's excellent.
Now what have I done?
Yeah, okay. IG training first. Cold and flu after.
CRB check
All right.
That's right.
Thank you very much. That's great. One of the things I've been doing is sitting in on a couple of incidents for national review. So on another occasion, we might want to create. Has anybody else managed to do any of those recently?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Trish, I'm sure you do them all the time. So that might be something that we want to talk about as a group. Good. Okay. Now, GP consortia engagement activities. Brian, we are not able to give this enough time to have a really good, in-depth debate about the implications and what you've learned and so on. So I suggest that we just treat this as just a record of what you've been up to, rather than a debate about what it means, because I feel that we wouldn't be able to do that justice. Would you be happy with that?
I think both Catherine and I thought this paper was really to inform and for the board to note, because this is part of, obviously, the amount of activity going on in this area, as Ruth was going to say, is huge, but it's building towards the strategy.
The strategy day.
And
Okay.
really that's where we'll have the opportunity to both find out what we've been doing in more detail, but really discuss what it means.
Okay.
So, I mean, I'm happy though if people want to ask questions about the existing paper, but I appreciate there's not a lot of time to discuss.
Brian, sorry, can you speak up?
There's not a lot of time to discuss, but I'm happy to take questions. if
Good.
there's any.
Okay. Well, it looks like you've got some questions. Louisa?
Not just a short one. I mean, I thought this was really great to see. And I suppose I just wondered whether you feel overwhelmed by the amount of work that you've got here, or whether you feel that you're sort of...
It's all delegated and the people do feel overwhelmed.
They feel overwhelmed.
By the amount of work you've done. Or whether you sort of think you're doing enough to get a real sense of what needs to be done for symptom relief. It's such a big job.
I think as people, as everyone is aware, the amount of change and the pace of change that's going on. I mean, the original stakeholder strategy was drawn up in terms of us as an organisation continuing to do what we were doing, talking to other organisations and people who were continue to do what they were doing. But we're changing, and the whole landscape is changing in nursing, so it's really extremely difficult to get a handle on how we speak to people and how much. In saying that, though, as you can see, certainly the regional directors are engaging with a wide variety of, I mean, we don't know exactly the numbers of consortia there will be, but as they spring up, they're being spoken to, and I think that's all we can do at the moment. We do have a number of important engagement days ahead, one of which is with the GP consortia looking at urgent care commissioning in February. So that's those sorts of events will really inform us better, as not so much as what we do now, but what we do over the next 12 months, I suspect.
Brian, I had a question. I thought that you've managed to achieve in the meetings that you've had and calls you've had with consortia, that list in 3.3, you've managed to have a good spread of consortia in terms of their size, from some of the very small to some of the very much bigger ones, and there's they seem to be concentrated in the east of England and in the East Midlands. Do you feel that you're getting a spread across the country?
Well, a lot of these meetings are really to the regional directors are engaging with the consortia, and I suppose individually they feel they are making progress, but we won't know until time passes as to how widely they are engaging. And as you know, the second wave of consortia has only just come into being, so it's hard to know.
I mean, I think that we can't emphasise enough how difficult it is to get in to see these people. A, because some of them don't really know what their priorities are, but B, that they feel pretty overwhelmed. So our strategy has been to get in on the back of other forums for particular issues. So for example, the urgent care pathway development was really, that's in Hampshire, and that's really part of work that was already going on, but we have agreed to host the event, and on the back of that agreement to host the event, we've actually got more of a role now in the actual development of that work. So it's just finding different clever ways of getting into the conversations, really.
Yeah, so you're looking for opportunities. Good. Okay, thank you very much. I mean, we're obviously deeply interested in what you've been able to learn and what the implications are for our strategy, and obviously a good place to look at that and think about the results is in relation to that strategy piece.
And I think the other thing, Joanne, to add is we have included GP commissioning consortia as part of the stakeholder survey, so they're included in the list.
Okay. I mean, the sort of things I'm thinking about are we able to segment the consortia? What's a good way of doing that? I mean, should we be segmenting them according to size or how interested they are in urgent care or what they think about us? How do we begin to prioritise? And that sort of, I suppose, strategic marketing approach is the sort of thing I think we ought to be looking for March. So an overview of the landscape. Good, thank you very much. We are happily on to any other business. So I haven't personally been informed of any other business today. I'd like to just remind people in the room and anybody who's still with us online to complete with the feedback form, please, because it's incredibly useful to us if you're able to do that. The next meeting of this board will be here on the 28th of February at 10:30. Thank you. Public part of the NHS Direct board meeting is finished for this morning.